The SaltDipped podcast, taking life, business, and adventure with just a pinch of salt. Welcome to the SaltDipped podcast. I'm your host, Tamsin Haley, and I'm very excited this morning to have Annie Olufowé with me from Get Storied. Annie, thank you so much for spending some time with me today.
Great stuff. Thanks for inviting me. I'm very excited.
Oh, no, me too. I've been looking forward to this chat. We've probably been talking about this interview for about maybe 2.5 months already, which is brilliant. So you should know how excited we are. And we've got some interesting information for you at the end of this podcast as well. So, stick it out, stick with us, and it could be very well worth your time to do so. So before we get into it, Annie, I'd love to get a good sense of you and your business. So let's start there. I think it's always easiest to talk about our business rather than ourselves first. What is Get Storied and how do you help people?
Well, Get Storied, the business is actually called Storied, and the tagline is Get Storied, as in, don't you want to get storied? But the heart of the matter is that we do storytelling for business. And that's the first distinction to make, the fact that it is storytelling for business. So what we do is we explore all the potential that stories have to create remarkable content for things like marketing, particularly sales. You've obviously heard that expression, facts tell, but stories sell. So what we've done is we've taken that beyond a very catchy saying into a systematized process of helping businesses improve their booking rates and attract clients. So we use storytelling to extract what will be most appealing to the target audience. And then, of course, because it's storytelling and because we work with business owners as well as companies and sales teams, there's always that wonderful component of motivation that comes from storytelling. So what we believe is that when you're building a brand, it starts from the inside out. So once you have brand belief, everything flows from there. Sales flow from there much more easily. Having fantastic networking discussions flow much more easily. And even the sense that flows through into your content and social media comes from that sense of belief. So in Storied, we find the stories that unlock growth using all of those wonderful components that have the end result of a better functioning business.
Fantastic. And I must say, I know a couple of people who've worked with you, and it's been really interesting. There's two cases in particular that come to mind, and both of them were businesses that I'd known for a couple of years before they met you and started with the stories journey with you. And two things stood out to me. Number one, they stopped telling me what they sold. They started telling me the difference that they made, and that was really, really lovely. And they could walk me through how they got there with you a little bit. I think not as well as what you would do because you do it so often with businesses, but a little bit of the process. And the second thing that really stood out to me was how confident they both were after doing those sessions with you. Suddenly it was, I'm not okay. Can you please give me some money to do this for you? It was, no, this is the difference I make. I'm here to help people or businesses do exactly that by engaging in this way. And it was amazing. And one of them was a really, really confident person to begin with as well. He's an MC. We actually spoke about him. Now you said you saw him last night, Kevin Abbott. And it was just, so for somebody who was already confident, it was just giving him confidence in a new sphere, which was brilliant to see. So what you're doing, like you're talking about sales, you're talking about stories, but actually you're giving people a lot of confidence as well.
Yeah, that's what we aim to do. And it's nice that you talk about Kevin like that because it just shows that there's always space to grow, even for confident people. But I think what was wonderful about him is that the confidence moved into the direction of how to talk in a business sense, in addition to the wonderful natural confidence he says has an MC. So when we work with him, for example, it was, let's think about what you're actually trying to sell and do that confidently. And a lot of people do come to me, like you pointed out, they change the way they talk, they change the way they deliver, their speech patterns change because they understand that people aren't interested in the technical features, they're interested in the benefits you get. So they have that pivot. And clarity is a big thing that we help with storytelling. People don't know how to describe their businesses with that succinct clarity that nails it, the value proposition. And so that also improves the way they deliver in whatever context it might be.
Fantastic. And one of the other spheres, that I've seen you in as well. So we're talking about, sitting down and working with individual businesses, but public speaking is something that you're very passionate about, not only for yourself, but for people you work with as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about Pitchmasters and what you've done there? I know you might not have any plans at the moment, but we'll always be keeping an eye out for those events.
Funnily enough, we do now, and the conversation we had was last night when we got together with a few of the previous Pitchmasters team, and we are planning another event. But to tell you what that's actually about, yes, the heart of it is public speaking, but of course we're all about telling stories, and we think that it's very important to have a place to tell stories live. I think that's becoming even more important when the world is moving towards this kind of perhaps AI driven lack of humanity that might be starting to creep in. So when you have someone telling a story live, it's that lovely direct human connection that people are coming to value and seek more frequently. But what Pitchmasters is an evening of 3-minute pitches by business owners or businesses, companies. They get on stage, they tell their stories, but the idea is that they also explain what they do to generate income from the evening. We want people to come away with business cards and bookings and connections. So it's a networking event, but it's very relaxed because it's fun. We want it to be fun. We don't want it to be one of these heavy, serious networking events. And it has a competitive element that also adds to the whole experience. So the audience votes for the best 3 minutes, and then we also have a panel who has a component of the votes, and then the panel gives feedback after every talk, which is very useful for the person who's delivering it, because they're picking up more tips on how to talk about their business. And we sort of pile on the fun with things like wine tasting. We have nice food on sale for people to enjoy. So it really is, storytelling is at the heart of it. Business growth is the outcome from it, but it's just a really good evening. And the next one that we're planning is, at the moment, we've penciled in a date for the end of May. So we'll be look out for social media. We'll be making those announcements.
Perfect. Good. Well, send through to me and we'll make sure that we also distribute it on all of our channels as well, so we can get people there. I can say, so I was a pitcher, oh my gosh, was that this year or last year? I can't even remember now, at one of Annie's events.
I think
I
it
can't
was,
remember.
we had one, I think we only managed to do one earlier this year, and that was the one that you came to, if I remember
Yes.
rightly.
It just feels like yonks ago because, it's been 2025. So,
Yeah,
but it was, like you said, it was everything that you described. And the energy was really amazing. I found everybody to be, even though it was a competitive environment, everybody was very welcoming. And there was sort of a separate room as well for the pitches so that you could actually step away from the crowd, which was brilliant. I think that was such a good feature. So you could just breathe for a couple before you ended up on stage. And everybody in that room, even though we were competing against each other, were so positive and optimistic as well, and saying things like, "Okay, you're fine. You've got this. Go get them." And then, when people finished, it was, "Well done. You did so great." It
yeah,
was a beautiful sense of camaraderie as well. And I think things like that also super jump relationships. So if I now see any of the people who were in that room with me, I feel closer to them than I do to maybe somebody else who was in the audience who I might have known for longer or saw for the second time, even though I'd only met a few of those competitors that evening. Interesting how those environments create those
yeah.
relationships.
I wasn't. Thanks for telling me that, because I wasn't actually aware of that. I mean, it's nice to know. And this is the thing about Pitchmasters. We always get feedback from the pitchers and the audience members. So every single time we do another event, we feed that into making it the next event even better than before. So now we know that kind of relationship building, that warm, supportive environment happens in the pitching room. We'll be cognizant of that and see how we can encourage that even further. But it is competitive, but it's all good fun. I mean, the
Yeah.
prizes are kind of token, like pat on the back kudos, rather than anything sort of seriously valuable. It's a good feeling. We don't want it to get too serious. But the idea of the VIP room is that we, with a smile on our faces, we want the pitchers to feel like kings and queens of the night. So that's why we've had the VIP room with the sort of flowers and the incense and the complimentary drinks and so forth. So everything we
Bowl
do
of
at
mints as
Pitchmasters is
well.
done. Bowl of mints, yes.
Big one.
Anything to make you feel comfortable, but everything we do at Pitchmasters is done with a twinkle in our eye. We don't want it to become sort of too sort of heavy and high pressured for people.
No, I think that that's brilliant. And also, it's the first time I got to see you stand in front of a group of people as well. And I mean, this is you on podcast and conversation with me, but you really are fantastic when you're in front of people. You
Thank you.
command, the attention. Attention's the wrong word. Concentration. That's actually more what I wanted to say. You can feel everybody sort of listening and taking in what you're saying. And I think it's very much that skill that you have of being able to tell stories. It really comes into play when you are in front of a room. Well done on that. It's not a something that everybody has naturally.
Thank you so much, and it's something that I love. So when you love something, that also helps it make it have more effective.
Very true. Talking about things that you love. So, what was the starting point for how you've ended up in this business today? Like, what was that spark that made you go, this? And then, I mean, it's not always one of those things. It's like, well, that was the day and this was it. But yeah, tell us the story behind that.
There is a little bit of an element of that was the day and this is it. And I'll explain exactly how. What was happening is that we are members of a business networking group, and I'm originally from London in the UK, and I grew up there, raised there, lived there most of my life, and then in 2010 I came to South Africa. But my background is actually in education. I'm a teacher at heart. I always describe myself as that because I love it and I'm very proud of it. And language and communication is sort of always been dripped what drove me because I was an English teacher. And when I was a member of this networking group, I actually joined that under the heading of the NGO that I was running, that was going into disadvantaged areas, the townships of South Africa, and helping them improve their prospects with language teaching. And I joined that networking group because I wanted to actually get support for that. And then something happened, which everyone knows about, called COVID. And then the lockdown happened, and it just became no longer viable for me to run my non-profit. The funding was shut down. Nobody knew what was going on. And I thought, well, what am I going to do to try and keep some money flowing so that I can keep my work in the townships happening, however small. And I remember the day I had a conversation with a friend, and they saying, "Oh, I'm reading this fantastic book about storytelling for business," and I'm like, that's it. It was like a bell going off in my head, and I was like, I can do the heck out of that. That's what I wanted to do. And also, there was something else going on that brings in the entrepreneurship component. When you actually work in the non-profit space, what you understand is that you do end up becoming very dependent on donations and grants and so forth, and it builds that sense of dependency. So once COVID hit, that kind of became even more apparent how vulnerable my work was to the wills of other people's donations. And I decided that I wanted to become a business person. I decided that I wanted to learn how to generate money for myself. And I still think that's one of the best skills that you can have to future proof yourself. So when I pivoted to storytelling for business, the purpose was, yes, I can do something that I know that has value that I can sell to generate income, but also it began that journey of now I'm going to understand how business works. And it was one of the best decisions I made when I pivoted because I had to hit that cold faced hard. Now I have to be an entrepreneur. And that's when I pivoted, changed my seat in my business networking group to Storied. I came up with the name, changed the color, and threw a website together and opened my doors. And that, the rest, as they say, is history.
There's so much in there that I absolutely love because it's very you. That whole story is very you. The first thing that jumps out at me is if you give Annie a book recommendation, she's very likely to actually go and grab it and read it. And this is clearly one of those cases. We've had that conversations before where I've gone, oh, I'm reading Daniel Priestley, and Annie said, you know what? I've heard that name 5 times this week. I'm getting that book, and she did. So that lifelong learning is such a great thing, and so there's that. And I think you're being able to do that and not being afraid to keep learning and beginning again sometimes is paramount actually to survival and then thriving through that. So I mean, well done. COVID, I think, did that for a lot of people, but not necessarily all the outcomes were successful. But I love that you just grabbed it with both hands and ran with it.
Yeah, I think it was one of those situations where it was a kind of sink or swim element. But I think also when you move into something that you already have an affinity with, it makes the move slightly less daunting. Moving into entrepreneurship is always daunting, but if it's something that you know in your heart of hearts, and this is something that I try to get across with the work that I'm doing with my clients, if it's something that you know that you can do in your heart of hearts, use that as the rock that you build everything else on. And then it makes that lifelong learning, it makes that new venture, it makes that unknown territory so much more easier to navigate. And so at least I had that bedrock of confidence to move in on. 100%. I mean, as I say, I am a teacher at heart, and learning, I don't believe, should ever, ever, ever stop, whether you're 19 or 90.
And also that idea that you spoke about with, being able to generate your own income being such a powerful tool. You can see exactly why you're now doing what you're doing and teaching people to do that, because it seems easier than what it is. I think some people have a very natural gift for sales. We talk about those people who can sell ice to an Eskimo, and that's wonderful. But for a lot of people, that's a learned skill, and especially to do it well. Give me two things that you find that most people struggle with when it comes to selling, and then we'll chat about something else for a bit.
In the storage space, we talk about three things, which is clarity, connection, and conversion. Conversion is the hard part, because once you can lay all the groundwork, you can build a beautiful brand, you can have a fantastic site, you can have all the things in place, you can have your funnel. It all leads to a moment when you actually have to get that booking across the line. And then what often happens is that there's like psychological factors that come into play where people don't know how to ask for the sale. And that comes from once you actually work with us and you have that confidence, it makes, as you said earlier, it makes that happen more easily. But so I think that understanding the psychology of how to sell is something that people very much struggle with. And I love the way that you talk about, this learned skill for selling and this intrinsic skill for selling. And some people have it naturally, but I do believe it's something that everyone can do once they understand the psychology behind it, and once they overcome that kind of choke point of saying, so would you like to, can we proceed? So that's something that I recommend people get their heads around. And the second part that people do need to understand is that you have to have consistency. When you, for example, with us, if you learn your stories and we provide you with your story bank, you have to get that content out. You have to be bingeable. People have to find you. You have to have a presence. And whatever that is, whether it's through social media, whether it's through networking, whether it's through public speaking, you have to be seen and found. A fantastic saying I saw just the other day, that sometimes it's not the best that wins, it's the best known. So make yourself found, and make yourself found, be able to be found consistently. And those are the two game changers that I find that help businesses go to the next level.
Yeah, you're right. It's not always the next best shiny ball either. I think that's one of the things of my personality I've had to rein in a little bit. It's actually learning consistency and routine, which sounds, I think, strange when we talk about entrepreneurs. If you're not one, it always looks like these people are just going out and you're randomly working in coffee shops and they just seem to be making it happen, and whatever idea they have works, but that's not the case. It's a lot of consistency in the background and trying every day, repeat, changing what isn't working, and that brings us back to being these beginners again in our adult lives. So, I mean, this podcast has really come from that point for me, and we've spoken about this off air as well, Annie. But where I went, okay, I'm going to learn to surf, and I mean, I made that decision at the age of 33. Never really been very athletic. Criticisms that I would get was that I'm not particularly flexible. So yoga is great for me because it makes me like a little bit more flexible. I was never going to be a gymnast. All the things that don't necessarily speak to being a really good surfer ever. But, having got into that and learned to do it, and spending time in water for me is really, really important and been lovely. But you've also had a lovely non-work adult learning experience that you said you found a lot of joy in.
You're talking about fishing.
I am.
Is um, just to put the background to that, I was living when I came from South Africa, came from London to South Africa in 2010, and I lived all my that time in Joburg, and then at the end of 2022, I moved to Cape Town, and of course, then you're surrounded by the sea. And if I had to kind of nail the moment when I thought I really want to do this, I think it was because obviously you spend time at the beach, and in the back of my mind, I see people fishing, and they look so peaceful, but they're also doing something that takes a lot of skill. I like that combination. And also, part of the entrepreneurial journey, you want something that's going to help you kind of decompress. And so I thought, you know what? I want to start fishing. I never have the conversations in my head where things have to be done by a certain age. I've always found that strange. I don't believe in this kind of externally imposed expiry date on when you can start things. I mean, what is that? So I don't, if you start something later in life, I don't see how it's relevant in any way. So I started doing, I got a fishing rod. I went to the fishing shop with my partner, and we had conversations. And I was rubbish, but it to start with. But also when you're sort of like learning something and you're maybe starting to learn something older, that doesn't matter as well, because I love the fact that I was doing it. And of course, with consistency, I did get better. But just sitting there, staring out to the sea, practicing patience, tuning into the environment. There's something so spiritually uplifting about the water, as you know. The size of it, the fact that it's so much bigger than you are, sort of gives you a sense of strange peace. And I just like the idea that it's sort of like active inactivity, where in the sense that I'm actually sitting here and I'm sort of almost going into a sea-based meditation, but I'm not just being idle, I'm trying to catch fish. So I think that's the
Yeah.
secret,
You're going to
people
be
who
ready to
fishing.
strike at any point in time. You can't
Yeah,
just sit back.
so you can't just sit back, you're actively doing something. So it's just the most wonderful, wonderful activity for me. And me being me, like you said, now I want to get kind of nerdy about it and start studying. And I'm thinking I'm going to book a fishing coach or something like that. That's me. I want to do it well, but I never want to lose that kind of moment of stillness that happens when you're sitting by the sea trying to catch fish.
Yeah, I think there can be that point where you get too serious about it and you actually end up taking the joy out of it. And that could be any hobby or sport that you're involved in. I love your approach to life in that aspect, where it's like, oh, there's no age that's too old. I'm having this really funny conversation with people, especially in like a business networking environment, I find, because I do these little surf reports. So if you've met me at a networking event, you might have seen them on my personal Facebook. I'm starting to bring them out into my business and official pages now for 2026. But I often get, especially it's been men up until now, where they come up to me and they're like, "Oh, I used to surf, but the wetsuit doesn't quite fit anymore, and I'm not fast enough anymore." And I just sort of say to them, "Well, get a bigger wetsuit and go for smaller waves. Like, what's the issue? Or pop up
Exactly.
slower." And what's actually been really funny with that, I had somebody, what's it, Thursday, a couple of days ago, say to me, "Oh, cool, I'll probably see you in the water." And he was one of those who hasn't really surfed since varsity. He's like, "No, I'm doing it. I'm doing it this summer. I will see you at our local surf spots." It was just lovely, going, good. I mean, these guys have got these skills. Come back, come play. Why are you adulting so hard? Come and play and
Yes.
just have some fun
Yeah.
as well.
We've got to, sometimes you just got to get out of our own way when we're attempting to try something, do something, take something up again. It's one of the beautiful things that as you get older is that you do tend to kind of find the shortest distance between 2 points, and that's usually like just cut the nonsense that you're telling yourself, and cut the nonsense that you're hearing, and just do it. So yeah, lovely
Yeah.
story.
Like you like you said, get a coach. That's a really great way to jump 10 steps ahead than if you were just trying to do it by yourself as well. Because you mean I could I could still be trying to stand on a surfboard, I think, if I hadn't got a coach, and going, what am I doing wrong? And just go, just this, just this, just this, just small changes all the time is a great way to learn. And having somebody hold your hand metaphorically does make a big difference.
Yeah. And also it overcomes that moment that people who go fishing is sort of sea fishing from the shore, when you see the guy down the way who's just caught another fish, and you're looking at thinking, what, he got here at the same time as me, what's going on? So you have that moment of like, yeah. But again, I don't want to move into that competitive space, but it would be nice to just sort of catch some more frequently, just so that you do have that feeling of success from time to time.
Yeah, you say the first thing that goes to your head is probably, well, does he have the best spot? So you might even sort of try, okay, so this is the surfing mentality, right? Exactly that. It always feels like you're chasing the peak. So you go to where it was, because it's the ocean, it moves. So you spend a lot of time sometimes paddling backwards and forwards getting to that peak. But that's in my brain. Maybe that's a surface mentality. I'm going, go sit as close to him as possible and see if you can catch his fish. But it doesn't need
Or,
to be
as
that
has happened
competitive.
on more than one occasion, when we've just strolled up to him and had a chat, like, what bait are you using? You know, how long have you been doing this? Tell us about your equipment. And they just love, and then you just have this, you learn from them as well. They become sort of like informal coaches for a short conversation, and they're always willing to let you know. In fact, they enjoy it, so that's always possible. And I guess that's easier when you're standing next to the person fishing rather than when you're on the sea on a surfboard. So yeah.
True. Yeah, surfboard, I get it. I've got a little bit of that with sort of. I've made a couple of friends who've been surfing for a lot longer now than I have, and it's lovely being in the water with them as well. Because, like you say, for a short bit, you've got a coach. I'm currently at that spot where I'm sometimes good at catching unbroken waves, but not all the time because I'm still getting used to what that feeling feels like under the board when it's actually got you. 'Cause sometimes you think it has and it hasn't. And there's nothing better than having somebody in the water with you going, okay, paddle, 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 paddle. And they know
Yeah,
you're more
yeah.
likely to get it because they can see the distance better behind you where the wave is.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it is awesome.
It's like driving sense. You know, when you build up driving sense, and it's almost like this gut knowing of what to do. What you've described is like that.
Yeah.
The more you do it, you sort of get to understand what you're looking for and what it feels like. But if you've got somebody else outside who's already there, they can actually. It's the same with fishing. You know, they have that fishing sense. It's almost like a sixth sense that they've built up through experience, and allowing them to share that a little bit is a wonderful moment.
Yeah, it is. It actually makes me think of when I was just, okay, so when you start surfing, they sort of take you into the broken waves already because they're easier to catch. And all you have to do at that point is stand. That is it. That is goal number one, stand on a surfboard. Then it's stay standing for 10 seconds at least, so you sort of build this up. But going up to what we call the back line, which is where those unbroken waves are for the first time, sometimes the coaches still push you. So especially at that point, because you don't know what it feels like, they want to get you up, they want to get you confident, and then you can learn what it feels like. But I'll never forget one of the more senior learner ladies with somebody trying to push her, and she was like, "Just don't push me! I'm trying to feel it." And I was like, there we go. It is, like you say, it's that learned experience because if we don't get the feeling often enough and for long enough, frequently enough, then you're never going to actually learn what it feels like. I think that pulls through to a lot of things in life. Like sometimes you can be
Yeah.
going and making the same mistake over and over again and going, why is this case? And then suddenly you go, that's why, okay, there's the change that needs to happen actually.
Yeah, you learn to recognize it. You just got to stop and listen to the clues wherever they come from. But you learn to recognize it. Yeah, it's that, like you say, surfing, fishing, running a business. You just build up this kind of muscle or this kind of intuition born of trial, error, and repeated activity of doing something. And that's why I think with business, the best way to learn it is to do it. Obviously, you can study it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with coming with your MBAs and so forth. But I find what I hear from people who've been in business is that, listen, everything I've learned about doing it successfully is from just doing it and learning to listen and build up that intuition that helps you sort of like navigate better.
You referring to it as a muscle as well, because I think especially when you get into entrepreneurship, you do hit these points where you go, oh, could this just get easier at some point? Because it's not easy. It's a hard life choice, but I mean, the thing is that all choices in life are hard. It just depends on what you're willing to work with, and secondly, it doesn't get easier. You just get better at handling it. It's that
That's
intuition, that
wonderful.
built
That's a
memory.
wonderful way to. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It doesn't get easier. You just get better. I love that. I think I'm going to steal that, Tamsin.
You're welcome to. I might have to admit that it might already be stolen. When you end up reading lots of things and spending time on social media, sometimes I don't know what I've absorbed and what I haven't.
It's wherever it comes from. It's wonderful. Yeah.
But speaking about getting better, we're very excited. We've got a workshop in mind where we want to be sitting with a number of business owners to elevate what you're already doing. Annie came up with a brilliant name of it, which is called Growth Actually. And not just marketing that promises all the results and maybe it's just a bit fluffy. We want to get down to the nuts and bolts and help you build a marketing plan that works for you. Now, we will be sharing details of that in the caption of this podcast. What we want to talk about now, though, is a little bit about what you can expect out of it. So, on the day itself, Annie is going to be breaking the ice and getting us going, because there's absolutely no point in me stepping in from a digital marketing perspective if you don't know what you're talking about first. So, Annie, in a bit of a synopsis, not giving too much away because we want them to come and join us for the workshop, but what can people expect from that experience with you?
What I find works well in terms of growth actually is when I deliver workshop moments that have very clear impact lessons. And it's something that I've mastered where I can give you in a short space of time, listen, this you need to do this, and this in this order, and this will work for you. So that's the format that I've perfected. With the topic that we're talking about is how you can actually first of all find the stories that you need to tell, understand why you need to tell them, but then that magic ingredient of how you can use that to improve connection, clarity, and conversion. So it's going to be the tried and tested tools that I've picked up that I'm going to share. But as I say, I've worked out a way so that people can actually walk away from the session saying, I'm ready to do this. It's really, really impactful, and it's a quick hit of knowledge that's implemented, that you can implement. And that's what I'm going to be doing in our session.
Amazing. That makes me really excited, because often what we find is that business owners, or the person in charge of marketing even, but let's be honest, it does start from the business owner or the founder. Your idea and vision needs to trickle down or be passed over to whoever it might be who's managing your marketing for you, whether it's yourself or somebody else in the business or outsourced. And often that conversation hasn't taken place. And we are seeing mass change in the digital marketing landscape, thank you to AI. This year has been astronomical to see the changes, and we can only expect it to accelerate going forward. And a part of that is that as human beings, we're becoming allergic in a way to AI from the perspective of how generic the content really is. And unfortunately, tactics that we've used in the past, like maybe past, such as discount marketing or constantly sell in the digital marketing space, it's actually become ineffective a while ago. But we've got businesses that are still trying that route. It's more like the traditional, almost newspaper, magazine, radio, advert day way of thinking. Now, not to say that those mediums don't still have a place. I still have a big love for radio in particular, but we need to be clear about the messages that we are building. So from Annie's good work and the nuggets you're going to be getting from her, we're then going to look at how do you execute that online in a way that people actually want to consume it. We've got a couple of amazing trends that have come up, and one of the ones I'm very enthusiastic about is what we're calling employee generated content. If you want to go and have a snippet, an idea of what that is before you come and join us, go and have a look at Starbucks, go and have a look at Lululemon, or even IBM, believe it or not, on LinkedIn, are making use of this tactic very strongly, and not just to create content, because it's generated content, but they're reporting huge increases in return on investment in their businesses. 20 to 30% of profit growth is sort of the number that we're looking at. So we want to teach you how to take any stories and pull that into a good strategy, and then being smart about it with tips, tricks, tools, and a couple of other little magic tips that we've got in our back pocket so that you can look like an absolute content guru by the time that you walk out of there. So very excited to be sharing that with you. Please book a space. They're limited. We want it to be intimate. We want to be working with business owners who want to be there and are seeking growth for 2026 and beyond. This is not going to be a short-term tactic. It's not going to be a get a payday tomorrow. You're going to be building your business up for future success. All right, so we're going to share all that. But Annie, let's say somebody's gone, I have to have a conversation with Annie today. How do they get hold of you?
The easiest way is to drop me an email, and it's easy to remember. It's Annie at Get Storied, and it's Storied is STORYD, getstoried.com. And they can drop me a line and say, hi, I've heard the podcast, I'd love to chat more. And then I will send them a booking link, and we can get a time to have an exploratory call. But I'm also I'm not sort of worried about people dropping me a line directly on WhatsApp as well. That's cool. So my number, shall I share my number? It's okay.
You are welcome to. Go for it.
+27 076 358 2634, and then you can just drop me a WhatsApp, and again, same process. Tell me, have a little chat about what you want to discuss, and we'll book a time to take it further.
you've just completely outed yourself as an international business person because you started your number with +27, which I think is absolutely brilliant, and well done for doing that. I always get a little bit tripped up when everyone starts with, 44. Da, da, da. I'm like, okay, I think you're in England, but I'm stuck as to what I would do with that number going forward. So well done. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Annie, for joining me today. I really enjoyed this chat. I knew I was going to enjoy it from the moment I asked you to please come and join me on this podcast. We're always such great fun to have a conversation with. And I think if you might not only be walking away with a lot of knowledge and information from our workshop, but we hope to also leave you slightly in stitches. As you can see, we enjoy a good laugh and finding the fun as well. It's not always, it cannot always be serious, and it should not be. We're big
Amen to
advocates
that.
for that.
Yeah, I
Otherwise,
100% agree. And thank you so much. It's been thoroughly enjoyable, as I knew it would be. And I really want to go fishing now, just talking about it. And, this time of year, I'm going to have my sort of knockoff day. That's the first thing I'm going to do. But yeah, it was absolutely wonderful. So thank you so much for having me on.
pleasure. Good. I'm glad that you're feeling inspired to get out there and get back in front of the water as soon as possible.